chapter 9, we have a period of time that's lapsed between chapter 8 and chapter 9. But it's quite an interesting new section of scripture, because you see, it's very, very likely that the prophet saw not only what was going to happen in a short time, but what was going to happen in a long time. And we know that the nations are going to be judged. We know the nations were judged. We know the nations will be judged again. And that's exactly what we see in chapter 9. We see the judgment of the nations as prophesied by Daniel. We know that short term Greece, Alexander the Great, would come through, and he would literally sweep the city of Tyre, part of which was out on an island and part of which was on the mainland. And to finally get to the island, he would sweep the ruins of the part on the mainland into the sea to cause a causeway to be between Tyre out on the island and the ground. Prophecies about the only thing left there would be fishermen drying their nets on the rocks. Very much happened. And so we see that short-term prophecy of what would happen with Alexander the Great. But we also see midterm the coming of the triumphal entry of the Messiah, perhaps one of the most famous prophecies that we saw fulfilled with the coming of Jesus. So let's take a look at that passage. It's chapter 9, verse 9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout in triumph, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just, endowed with salvation, humble, and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a donkey. I'm sure most of you probably recognize that section of scripture as being repeated in Matthew 21, verses 4 and 5, the triumphal entry. And here it's very clearly presented to us in Zechariah 9:9. But there's something more interesting in chapter 9 as it continues in verse 10. We find the millennium earth. We find a even further look out at is going to happen to the nations being judged into the end times. And so this is a wonderful section of scripture to take a look at the fact that this prophet saw not only the short-term Alexander the Great judgment of the nations, not only the coming of the Messiah riding on the foal of a donkey, but he also saw the end judgment that would be foretold in the millennium earth, the millennium reign. And so it's a fascinating section of scripture. I hope you go back and study it for yourself. But it just goes to prove to you that you can't study the New Testament without studying the Old Testament. And you'll never appreciate all of the things that probably the prophets didn't understand, but that they saw. The typology, the shadowy pictures of those things that would yet occur, and the prophecies being fulfilled exactly as they said they would. So I hope that you've had a great weekend, either watching your church services or being in your church services. And I hope that you'll go back and study Zechariah chapter 9 and see the three pictures that Zechariah saw. And I think you'll be fascinated by the fulfillment of those passages of scripture. That's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.